to Daniel Brandt, Lee Edwards, Paul Herbert, Bea Leeds, Colin Leith, Deirdre McMahon, Lee Roche, hope I said that okay, Ramona Sancho, great to have you guys here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get underway in just a second. Actually, while I've got you, if you wouldn't mind, bottom right of your screen should be a little chat icon. And if you could just write where you're tuning in from, and I'll kick things off. Thanks, Paul. Hello to Cambridge. Got Colin from Kent, Southend. Oxford Academy, Oxford, of course. Cool. Okay, slightly nervous because I haven't seen our guest speaker in the waiting room yet, but I'm sure he's on the way. Let's get started. So this is the fourth webinar in the Peter Jones Foundation's Igniting Enterprise webinar series. My name is Kumar Hindocha, and I work as the head of partnerships for the foundation. I've been your host for the last 3, and there's 3 more after today, where we have been speaking with some truly incredible business founders who've been sharing their personal stories with you as well as their business stories. But crucially, what kind of underpins all of these is our partner Pearson, who have carefully helped us select these entrepreneurs and guided me with some questions that I'm asking the entrepreneur to help you, the teachers across the 3 curriculums, that's GCSE Business, A-Level, and the Tech Award, so that it matches with your curriculums and is completely relatable to your students. A quick intro to the Peter Jones Foundation. So we are a registered charity with founder and president Peter Jones from Dragon's Den, and we are at the forefront of encouraging, educating, and empowering young people all around the world, not just in the UK, in enterprise and entrepreneurship. And nearer to the end of today's session, in let's say 50 minutes, I will share a bit more about our core programs that your school, your students can take advantage of to give them the best possible chances in furthering themselves, be that in self-employment, on their own journey as an entrepreneur, or in employment, of course, and even higher education. A quick bit of housekeeping. I do think it's worth just running by a few of the kind of what this platform is. It's called Livestorm. It's what we've been using so far. It's what we'll be using for the rest of the academic year. There's the questions chat tab as well as the chat tab. You're more than welcome to write any questions as we go through. It'd be amazing if this could be like a 2-way conversation. So any burning questions you have, please put them in the chat. And in terms of recordings and sharing the recording of our conversation today, they will be shared, of course. Pearson will work them up into worksheets for you to use, as well as breaking them down into little snippets, which will be shared as well on the Foundation's social channels, as well as a full recording of today's conversation on our YouTube channel. I'm just going to invite our speaker to participate. So I'm delighted to welcome today's business leader, who is a toypreneur. And so amazing. So thank you so much for making the time to be here. Really appreciate it. And let's get stuck in straight away. I've got loads to ask you about. Would you mind just giving our audience today, mainly teachers, but I think there's a couple of students as well, which is great. So we hopefully get a bit of variety in the questions and some nice diversity. But would you mind just giving an overview of your business, Richard?
Sure. So hello, everybody, and thanks for joining this webinar. We're a toy company, but if I expand on that a little bit more, I'd describe ourselves as a toy innovation company. So we design toys from the ground up. So from an initial idea that it could have come from anywhere, it could be an outside inventor. It's predominantly internally created. We will take that idea, drive it up into a working prototype, show it to retailers around the world. So retailers from Walmart, Target, Amazon in America, to our local domestic big retailers like Tesco, Argos, Smith's Toys, and then European customers as well. We'll show prototypes, and from there, if we get a fantastic reception to that, we will progress it to production. We love innovation. We center around innovation, so we try to create things that have never been done before. That's really what makes us tick, and ultimately trying to create that toy that gets that wow reaction from the kids.
Hence the name.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'm going to jump in with a question of my own, actually, because how often do you do those kind of retailer pitches? Is that the dominant thing in your calendar, in your diary?
It's one of the dominant things, yeah. So there's time put aside, probably 3 key times.
Oh, Richard, we might have just lost you there, internet-wise. Can you hear us still?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Hey, Richard.
Can you hear me?
I think there's a problem with the connectivity. Oh, there's thumbs up going there.
Can somebody send thumbs up?
I can't hear Richard.
Okay, so I'm typing here.
Just give it a second.
I asked for thumbs up.
We should be back on track soon. Please don't leave us, guys. This is I've been waiting for this this particular episode for a while. Because I just love toys. Big kid at heart.
I'll show you some toys
Richard,
as well.
You're probably running around trying to reconnect or reset your router or something. It's frozen with quite a stern look on your face as well.
Let it change.
What I might do is fill this time by sharing my screen. Oh, I think I see a bit of life. Richard, you coming back? I don't know if you can still hear me. You could join from your mobile. That might be a good little workaround.
Can you hear me now? Can you see? Am I back?
That was strange because it was going as in the connection was quite smooth and then it just cut out.
Can you hear me?
Can hear perfectly.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, right. This is strange. I think other people can actually hear us both. He's changed his mobile connection. Okay. Cool. Richard's just posted. I don't know if you guys could see that. He's changed his mobile connection. So hopefully, otherwise we'll need the audience to be a go-between of my questions and Richard. So I can't hear or see him. All I want for Christmas.
So I'm going to ask a question then to everybody else that's listening in.
1 more minute. Sorry about this, guys. If you've just joined us, we've just introduced Richard, CEO of Wow Stuff. Just started getting into it, and the internet has taken us as its victim, and I think we should be rebooting soon.
Can you hear me?
I mean, this is a great time for anyone listening on the chat. Right, okay. It's just people can still see Richard, but I can't. How strange. How strange. If you've got any questions, I do appreciate we've barely scratched the surface of what Richard's business is about. But if you've got any questions, any burning questions around the toy industry, around manufacturing, around this crazy run up to Christmas, which I'm sure he's super busy in the thick of it. Okay, so it seems like quite a lot of you can hear and see us both. Okay, I do agree with that. Okay, Richard, if you can hear me, I'm just going to paste my question into the chat. Thank you to everyone trying to help us work our way through this. So I've just posted the first question I wanted to ask you. Okay. I think Richard's rejoining. Something's happened. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't lose faith. One second. Here we go. Right. Richard, if you can hear me, I've just sent you an invitation to... Oh, yeah. I think we might be live again. Hey, there you are.
I've been able to hear you perfectly all the way through.
Really? You heard my full commentary.
Sorry to everybody. Yeah, so because you couldn't see me, I tried a different connection. I used my mobile phone, but then I noticed somebody said that I was looking a bit blurry. So I've gone back to my fast sort of plug-in connector, which should work. But you can hear me now.
I can hear you, and you're looking great. So we were just I think it interrupted us when we were talking about the retailers and how often that is kind of a fixture in your calendar.
Sure thing. So about 3 times a year, we'll meet with the largest retailers. So we'll go to well-established venues at very well-established dates about 3 times of the year. So typically September every year is the biggest time of the year, because that's when the American retailers start putting in their initial thoughts, not necessarily locked down orders, but pretty firm thoughts on what they're going to select from you for the autumn, winter, or in America they call it the fall. The year ahead. So working that far ahead. Now at that point, we've already been working for 9 months, maybe nearly a year, leading up to that September for the following Christmas's products. So you're talking about a 2-year cycle. So right now, as we sit here now, we're already very well underway with our 2024 product lineup.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Does that? Are you still present at your your family Christmas parties and get-togethers, or are you thinking 2 years ahead?
I mean, I'm always thinking toys, so it's further on your mind than ever.
True.
But no, I mean, from a manufacturing point of view, our busy time is in the lead up to September. Now, at this time of the year, all our products are well shipped. 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and they're hitting the shelves or have hit the shelves over the last 2 months. So yeah, things are out there. Like for this Christmas. To give you an example, this guy was a couple of years in development. So, baby dinosaur,
little velociraptor.
A velociraptor. It's got all features and functions.
Whoa! I did not expect that. That's bad.
And it's got a fake glove underneath.
Oh wow!
Your arm and your hand, which if I stand up,
hearing
to hold it.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
The arm is going inside the dinosaur, and down here is a handle with a load of controllers on it, so I can do head tilts, I can do turns,
That's amazing.
So that's 2 years in development. Hit the shelves a few weeks ago, and then we hope, we pray, and we use marketing to ensure that the product ships off the shelves, customers buy it.
And there's no link to that product you just showed us there, that Velociraptor in particular. There's no link to that because it looks like Bluey from the Lost World.
Yeah, Jurassic World Blue.
World, that's it, yeah.
Correct, yeah, that's right.
Okay, fine.
We have to sign a license deal. So for everybody watching this at the moment or listening in, what we would have to do is secure the rights to be able to create that product in the first place. That can take about 6 months, negotiating with Universal. And in turn, Universal Pictures have partners, in this case, Amblin Entertainment.
Right.
They have to ensure they feel comfortable with you as a manufacturer, that you'll do justice to their product. And then you sign a contract, and the contract could be 2-3 years long, and you have to guarantee a minimum amount of money that you're going to pay the Universal Pictures, the owners of the franchise, to sell this product. So a minimum amount, and then on top of that, you'll pay a royalty, a commission. Now, the commissions is deductible against the minimum that you've guaranteed them, and that will all be contracted. And you sign a contract, and away you go. You can start the process of designing and developing a product.
Amazing, interesting. I never knew it worked like that, to be honest. And just in the chat, I think you've got an order for that toy in particular. Daniel said he's got a 5-year-old. Yeah. Lee has come up with a very actually interesting question. If you don't mind answering this one, how do you keep up with the challenges of competing against online entertainment, games, and virtual world?
Yeah, things have changed. It's a really good question because things have changed dramatically, haven't they, in the last 15 years or so since the advent of smartphones. The number of younger children now owning smartphones has gone up exponentially over the last 7 or 8 years. So, it's still probably not completely saturated at the sort of 5-year-old level. But, even at that age, they've got access to tablets, even younger than that. So that's what's occupying a lot of their time instead of the traditional toys. So we do work with some of the brands, like Harry Potter's a good example, and we'll create an item like a wand. In this case, it's a miniature scaled down replica of Harry Potter's wand. We've got a little light in the tip. I know that you can see that. And as you see me waving it like this, you see the light moving around a bit like a sparkler. Well, we've also built an app that works on your phone. Download the app, take a picture or a video of you doing this, and you can actually write your name, even though you can't see me writing my name.
It traces the movement.
Traces it, captures it in like a time lapse almost, puts it together. And so I could actually do an image of a wand spell, replicating what you see in the movies, and I can record it on this and then send it, share it with family and friends. So we're kind of trying to incorporate smartphones, smart devices with some of our toys. So that's one way we're going to try and compete. Other ways is actually embracing those big brand franchises, like Sonic the Hedgehog, as a game. So we've created here a collectible. So some of you might be familiar with a brand called Funko, which is a little collectible figurine, pop culture figurine. We do something similar. We house them in these hexapods, and these have got lights. I think I've got one that might come across here. The battery's a bit low, but when I swipe in front of this,
his mask is going to lift up.
Well, you'll see these patterns in the background that have appeared.
Right, so it's interactive in that way.
So it's got UV black light, and it's collectible that can also connect with lots of other.
Interesting, because when I was in school, collectibles literally meant things like magic cards. It was always card-based or Pokemon cards, which I know is having a bit of a renaissance right now. But it was all card-based stuff, and I've never seen. I need to go. I'm going to get myself to Hamleys as quick as I can.
Well, when I was a kid, it was the same. It was football stickers was the big thing. You'd get these blind packs, and you'd just hope you were going to get
the shiny
new footballer.
Alan Shearer,
Alan Shearer, one that you hadn't already got. And if you got the same that you'd already got, you'd then trade it with your friends. And in that respect, we've taken that simple play pattern and brought it into collectibles. So I just showed you a large sort of this 3D figure collectible, but this is like 12, 13 pounds. So down at sort of under £5 as collectibles are the smaller versions, like these. These are called nanopods, and these all connect together. And you do the same thing. You buy these in blind boxes, and if you've got the same one you already got, you'd swap it with a friend and trade it until you build out the whole collection.
Amazing.
And then you can attach them together. I've just dropped this and knocked one of the characters out. So sometimes the play patterns in toys
stay the same.
Yeah, they stay the same. Time immemorial, but then you have to change them for the present.
Right. Okay. I got it. Fascinating stuff. Mr. Doyle, and your question is a very valid one. I will come back to that. So don't worry. We won't forget that.
Well, the answer to that is a lot. I'll just
Fine. Yeah.
if I can share this. Is it Porrig, pronounced Porrig or Padraig? Apologies if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. How much of a deposit does Universal demand? And they do. They ask for what's called an advance. So if and some of this stuff, I'm not going to speak specifically about Universal, but the principle is the same. Whether it be Disney, Warner Brothers, any of these mega franchises, it is a significant amount of money, because if you got the master toy rights, so that's a contract to be able to produce all of the toys in that particular brand, they know that the sales opportunity for you as a business is hundreds of millions of dollars. They will want you to guarantee royalties based on 70%, sometimes as low as 50%, but about 70% of your projected sales. So let's say I project I'm going to do $300 million worth of business, and I'm going to go for the Jurassic World franchise. That means I'm going to have to guarantee $200 million in sales, or at least the royalty on 200 million. So if you imagine the royalty on the 200 million was 20%, so that's 60. I've got my maths right. Sorry, $40 million. I would have to guarantee to Universal, and out of the 40 million, which I can pay over 2 years if that's the length of my contract, I'd probably have to pay about 30% of that up front. So if I'm going to have to pay 40, I'm going to have to give them about $15-16 million cash up front. So and they're leveraging the power and the value of their brand.
Their brand, yeah. And who has the liquidity to do that? It must be quite a very small select few that actually have that kind of liquidity, right?
Absolutely. So that's why you see the big guys continue to hold the rights for those franchises, the Hasbros, Mattels, these fantastic big corporations with fantastic infrastructure built over many years, and it gives them then a kind of an unassailable position. However, and this is the lovely thing about the toy industry, and I've been in 3 different industries prior to this. It's the only industry that I've come across where I've met more multimillionaires and billionaires who have made it solely in the industry by hitting on something new, something that becomes a trend or a fad, and they've gone from being almost nowhere or a tiny little business to being worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Because if you can imagine, you bring out a collectible and all the kids say, "Oh my God, I love it." And they tell their friends, and that word of mouth spreads like mad, or their friends start buying it and you're away. And a product like this is typically made in Asia. It's mass produced in factories that can scale up so quickly. So you can put a lot of product into the market and therefore grow very quickly.
Amazing. We're gonna get back on track, but just to stay off track a little bit longer, I have to ask you this: the fidget spinner kind of fad that came and went, well, I think it's gone. What drove that? Like, was that something that you guys can anticipate those kind of trends coming in and out?
You quite 99% of the time, 98% of the time, you can't anticipate a big fad like that, and that's more a fad than a trend. So it's something that goes like that and then goes back as fast. If when you spot it, you've got the right kind of factories and the right kind of infrastructure to be able to jump on that bandwagon and ride it, fantastic, and you can make a lot of money. But the money is often lost when you call the end of the cycle incorrectly. A bit like stocks and shares, I suppose. So it's okay calling it on the up and making a lot of money, but if you hold on too long and it turns out to be a fad and drops off very quick, you could have container loads of toys,
right?
Yeah, and then you can't give them away. And that's the thing with a toy. You have to have somebody somewhere that wants it, and the second they stop wanting it, it's not even worth giving it away for free to the toy shops, because the toy shops say, but I could put products on that shelf that kids will want to buy. Whereas if I put your toys that are now out of fashion, out of fad, they won't move at all. You're just taking up space.
We talk a lot at the foundation about building resilience in young entrepreneurs. And as an entrepreneur yourself, we're now talking about, obviously, we'll come on to your story as well. But in terms of resilience of products, what has been, is there a type of product, a type of toy that you've seen has a huge longevity to it, where kids come back and back and back for it?
Yeah, I like that question a lot, because it's a conundrum that many companies like mine in the toy industry have always tried to figure out. Why has one toy made it and stayed the distance, and why has another one that looks equally as good just fizzled out? And I remember meeting Hasbro, the big toy company, for the first time in America, and being welcomed into this ginormous showroom where they were entertaining the inventor community.
Right.
And my company was not strictly an inventor company. We were manufacturing our own product, but we had done a deal with Hasbro that year, and the product had been very successful. And we got an award, a lovely award, 2014, Hasbro's Inventor Team of the Year. And it was for a 6-legged, walking, Nerf blasting, dart firing robot.
Nice.
And the sales lasted about 2 years, and then it fizzled out. The Nerf brand continues and continued to grow and get stronger. Sometimes a product can fizzle out, but the brand can remain. And if you look at a lot of those brands, they continue to pump a lot of money behind them to keep them in the minds of the consumer. When you first launch a product, I'd almost go as far as to say no amount of advertising is really going to get you going. You've got to have an incredibly good toy, and a lot of the launch is about great PR and publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Once you reach that position as a leader with that product, it's then your job to ensure it stays there, and that's when advertising really does come into its own. But you've got to keep that, and what you're really doing is you're building a bridge away from your closest competitors. And when you're spending that amount of money because you're getting that amount of revenue, and you keep putting a big amount of the revenue that you're getting back into advertising, you keep yourself almost in a castle with a moat around it, and you keep your competitors at bay, who can't quite get across that moat. They can't, unless they come up with something so uniquely different, but in the same category. You will stay as the brand leader, and they will stay on the outside of the moat.
Interesting. So, compared to all other industries, you'd say toys has an argument to make as being the one where the brand is the most important. Products will come and go.
Well, I'd say today every company, if they're not focused on their brand, is going to be relatively short-lived. And by short-lived, yes, it might go on for 10 years or 15 years, but very long-term will be short-lived, because as consumers, we buy things that have a meaning to us. A brand in its purest sense is a promise. So it's a promise to the customer that it's going to deliver on a set number of values, whether it be Coca-Cola, the taste and the refreshing piece, whether it be an Apple iPhone that's probably more synonymous with the word cool than anything else, perhaps as a brand value. It's always got to deliver on that promise, and you break that promise and you'll start to see brand erosion, and then you'll lose sales. And I think in the toy industry, we're very product focused. We come out with lots of innovation, and sometimes we forget about the brand and the promise. So you'll come out with a product that has got a certain attribute that makes it wonderful. But because we're made up of lots of inventors, not necessarily brand or marketing experts, we then go on to the next shiny idea and thing, forgetting to build out that product into a brand and understand what the values were of that product that you've just created, and do they extend into other areas, or can you double down on that product and bring out a Mark II and a Mark III and then extend its life. So lots of clever ideas, people, but like all businesses, or industries, they tend to have more of one thing than another. In our case, it's more inventors.
So the composition of a typical toy company, including yours, is heavily skewed towards having more inventors, more thinkers, more. But Is that, do you reckon that's the case for the whole industry?
No. If you look at the Mattels, the Hasbros, those really big giant toy companies, then you will see actually probably the other way around.
Okay.
Many more brand custodians, marketeers,
Mm-hmm.
many more logistics people who are experts on building and maintaining the correct infrastructure to deliver those existing brands. Then you will have very strong marketing teams that are tasked every year with continuing to ignite the excitement for a brand like Barbie. So and I guess when every type of doll version of Barbie has been done, so if that's the limit to what you can do in terms of ideas, you're always working that tiny little bit at the top of the chances of finding something new, and is hard work. So they go for the very best in the business, the very the most excellent marketeers to try and find that little bit extra.
Right. I mean, just to round off kind of this section of our conversation around team and what it takes to be successful, and in obviously, as you said, it's quite unique. I never thought of it like that. You're quite front heavy on kind of inventors. How do you recruit employees who are both creative and innovative?
Well, we shout a lot through our website, through our PR within the industry about what we stand for. So each time we'll do a press release, it'll always include something about innovation, because that's ultimately what we strive for as a business. So we're trying to recruit people that appreciate innovation, love innovation, want to be involved with innovation. So I suppose by constantly speaking about your values, talking about your values in this call, for example, there could be somebody on, in the chat, somebody watching this who, might be a student at some point, who's watching this and listening and thinking, what Richard's talking about really resonates with me. I feel excited when he talks about, the types of toys that he does, the innovation that he creates. That resonates with me. So that's the kind of person that we want to reach out. We want them to reach out to us, and then, you'll see if they're a culture fit. Do their inner values, the things that they were brought up with, that they stick steadfast to. Are they the same as ours? So it's very much ensuring that when you're recruiting, you're looking for almost, dare I say, lucky likes, but not lucky likes in
the physical way. Yeah.
Way, or the way we dress, but in the way that we think,
in our makeup. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you're fully bought into creating the own lifeblood of your future workforce by doing things like this and inspiring the next generation to follow your path.
Yeah,
and
I should add, Kumar, also on top of that, I think that doesn't mean that we want people to all think the same way. Okay, we're talking about sharing, yes, the exact same values, but not thinking the same way. We want massive diversity in ideas, and there are no bad ideas in our business. So, someone will come out with a crazy, what a lot of people would think is a stupid idea. We don't have stupid ideas. We have crazy thoughts, but not stupid ideas, because those crazy thoughts, those crazy ideas come in, and we all kind of know when you're sitting around a table that won't work. Somebody just blurted it out, and we want that to happen. But then you grab it, and somebody else then thinks, actually, if you change that idea around, that crazy idea around, but you did this with it or did that with it, and then somebody else comes in and says, well, actually, what about if you then did this with it? And before you know it, you end up with arriving somewhere, hopefully in the future, of the real finished thing.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, any creative process has to have freedom of expressing your ideas, right? It starts with that. You can't be in an environment and be creative if you're not allowed to kind of express, even if it is silly, or even to yourself. Just moving on to a question about kind of market research. So we've talked about the kind of the process of designing a toy and how you go out and sign contracts that then you have to satisfy the quantity for. How important is market research during that development stage of a toy?
Wow. I'm sure some of the students will going to university, doing perhaps a degree in marketing or business, are going to come across sections concerning market research. Steve Jobs of Apple fame, famously said that how do people know what they want before they've even seen it? So words to that effect. I think we share that type of thinking. So have we done market research, and do we continue to do market research? Yes, but very rarely.
Okay.
Do I put a lot of faith in it in terms of using it for product development? No. I prefer to hear lots of people's thoughts and ideas, and I believe if I can sort of paint a picture in the listeners, the viewers' minds of your brain is a huge, ginormous filing cabinet, and when you tell me you've got a gut feel about a product or an idea, the way I think about that is that gut feel, that sudden spark of inspiration is actually 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of your life, of all sorts of incidents, all sorts of occurrences, probably, things you've come into contact with in the toy world, if it's in the toy industry we're talking about, that have all combined. And they're all in a mishmash, and they're in different drawers within your filing cabinet. Something about one item is in the bottom left-hand drawer and 3 files back, and something else is at the forefront of the top drawer. And that's come together without you thinking. Your fantastic computer of a brain has connected some dots and has suddenly blurted out this moment of inspiration of an idea. And we see this all the time. And I think that's what we look for. And when we do, people say, how do you come up with product ideas? Do you like whole brainstorming meetings? And I've heard this so many times, and I've heard companies have their own views and answers to this, but mine is we hold them all individually. We hold them always sitting on the toilet, reading a book, in a shower, washing your hair, or 15 minutes before you fall off to sleep at night.
And you've got to write it down, yeah.
It's at that moment when you least expect it, because your brain is in a different place and something else is going on in another part of your brain, and that spark comes out, and that's when you think of something great. And we just say, look, guys, write it down and send it in.
Amazing. So it's really interesting that and thanks for being so honest about, your views on kind of market research. I always thought toy companies would kind of, let's say you're developing a toy with a target age of, say, 5 or 6. I thought you'd get, at some stage, the prototype built, and then 10, 5 and 6-year-olds in a room playing with toys, and you're watching through the double perspex lens and making, and scientists scribbling in a notepad. Is that not what happens then?
You're not going to believe this, Kimo. You sent me a question on this, didn't you? And I wrote down some notes. And I'm just going to I haven't referred to any of my notes in this call, actually, because we haven't talked about any of the questions.
We haven't, yeah.
Which I think is a good thing, just letting things flow. But I just want to kind of refer to what I said when you asked that question about do we use that type of market research, and I put down here that we have tried. We once tried a series of focus groups, kids and adults, who came into a specially prepared studio with one-way glass.
That's mad, yeah.
So we could see them interacting with our toys. The results led us to believe the products were amazing. The results were a disaster.
You didn't sell a single one.
Yeah, we really didn't. And we did everything. We worked with one of the top research agencies in studios that had worked with some of the biggest brands, where they'd come out with some of the biggest and most successful product launches, but you're only going to hear about the successful ones. Looking back on it now, I would think that 95% of the stuff that went through there, even though it came out well in the results, probably failed in the market. And that's what happened to us.
It is interesting. I have heard other brands talk about, not just in the toy industry, but talk about distortion from you can go in with the best intentions and ask your ideal target audience in a room, but you might just get the wrong data. It can be, as you said, it's a combination of so many circumstances that go
there's
into.
there's lots written, isn't there, about with cognitive biases and making sure you avoid that. But these professional market research firms know all about that. They've studied it. They've done neuroscience studies. They've wired up your brain to see what your real reactions are. That's quite interesting. There's lots of stuff written on that where you can do a very professional market research test on people. There was one I read about many years ago about people watching, I think it was a pilot for a new TV series, and they were then interviewed after they came out from watching it whether they would enjoy watching more episodes and whether it could be successful. And of course, the answer was it was fantastic, it was brilliant. But those same people also wore the electrodes that go on your head, to study the neuroscience behind their thinking, and it actually showed the opposite. And they launched the pilot on the TV, and it was a disaster. So they kind of knew probably going into it, but they launched it anyway, and it did prove that actually what people say versus what people actually really feel and do can be quite different.
Interesting. So what we're saying then is market research has its place. Obviously, it's an important part of business, but beware of people telling you what you want to hear sometimes, and you can't get away from that.
Yeah, and I think, and I certainly think in terms of product development in the first instance, I don't think there's market research to give you, as one of the colleagues who's written in was asking about consumer views. Is asked about consumer views, competition, price trends. So you can do market research that will find out a lot of that, and we do. So we do what we call comp shopping. We all go out to the stores and we look what's there. That will tell you the present. Doesn't necessarily predict the future, but can give you some great insights. And sometimes you can spot trends there. Okay. Pricing trends is another one. Yes, that's quite interesting. We keep track on that kind of thing to see where things are going. There's an organisation that works across different industries, but works in the toy industry. They supply insights to companies like mine about price trends, what brands are hot, what new brands have entered the market, and what they're achieving. So we do collect a lot of that type of data.
Okay. That's really good to know. Right. Adina and Sumaya, we will come back to your questions. What I'm going to try and do is in the next 10 minutes, Richard, power 10 minutes, I'm going to rattle through a few questions that we actually did have written down to structure our conversation today. Can you talk us through the impact the lawsuits over intellectual property and competitors copying your toy designs has had on your business?
When I got into toys, I had no idea how rife the copying was. You bring out a successful product and it's copied in a matter of months and brought into the marketplace. And because I come from different industries previously and hadn't experienced the audacity, the sheer volume of copycats and what they could do, I was unprepared. I'd sold my previous business. I was quite lucky in sitting on a bit of money. So I, perhaps a bit overconfidently, thought, right, this company's copied our new toy launch, which became a global success. 6 million pieces of this product were sold. We sold 2 million of them. So it's our invention. So 2/3 of the business was done by others. So I said, right, I've got a bit of money. I'm going to sue these people. So I started issuing cease and desists, a legal term, to ask people to stop doing this prior to taking actual litigation against them. And with some people, we issued court proceedings. That took seven years of back and forth. About just over £1 million of my cash on that case. I listened to my lawyers, who seemed very nice, very genuine, had a very good reputation, and told me that at the beginning of the actions, just before I made the final commitment, what they felt my likelihood of winning was, which was over 90%.
Right.
And also the question I remember asking, I remember where I was standing when I asked the question. I can remember it that vividly. Was how much money do you think I have to spend, and how much money do you think I will get back? And the lesson I learned is that I can't say it's true of all lawyers. I don't know, but most of the lawyers I've dealt with do put their best head on in these situations, but money talks, and they're going to go generally based on two things: yes, your likelihood of winning, and a bit of optimism on what you'll get, what you'll receive back when you get there. Because if they don't, they won't be in work. They won't be in work. If they told everybody that you've got a high likelihood of winning, but
of course
you're probably not going to get your money back,
then
they're not going to get the job. So we went with that, and so I turned it around. So I lost a lot of money. I won the case ultimately, but it was 7 years.
Right.
The people had packed up and gone home. Most of them, people who copied us, they'd made their money and then packed up. So you've got really you've got to go into it thinking you will probably lose, even if you've got the best possible case, and then ask yourself, do you still want to do this?
Right.
Or you go the BrewDog route, or you go the route that we went. So very similar to BrewDog. We made a big thing about the copycats. We turned it into we're a small, tiny business, new on the scene. We've brought out a product that's won loads of awards. It's been selected by the biggest retailers, and all these Goliaths, all these huge companies have come in, and they've copied us. So we played that game of small guy versus big guy, and it won us a lot of support in the industry. So it was a marketing piece.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we had to write it off to: marketing.
Right.
We had another business come after us. I remember being on a phone call with an American business. We'd both invented a very similar product. They brought theirs to market in America. We brought ours to market in the UK. They found out about ours, and we found out about theirs at the same time. We thought they copied us, and I'm sure they thought we copied them. And it turned out that our patents were totally different. But what we'd done is we'd achieved a very, very similar play pattern, except theirs was much more expensive. They were Silicon Valley backed, with $275 million, and they issued a lawsuit against us. On the phone call, I asked them, why have you done this? Our patents are different, and they said, we know that we're trying to sue you for breach of your patents, and we know they're different. And this was what they call a without prejudice phone call, so it can't be used in a court. So you can say anything you want. And they told us the truth. They said, we will outspend you. We know that you haven't really done anything wrong, and we're sorry for that. But we're a very big company. We've got a lot of backing, and we'll outspend you in court, and we'll make sure that you go bust before you can.
How infuriating. And that's just pure intimidation.
Yeah, it was intimidation. And you'll find that. So you have to be on your guard and be very aware of this type of thing.
Well, I hope you don't have to issue too many more cease and desists in the future of your business, Richard.
Yeah, we've tried to steer away from them now. Once bitten, twice shy.
Just talking about brand partnerships. Let's say Mathel. What can you talk us through? What they mean to your business? What do they bring to your business? These kind of brand partnerships.
A good collaboration. Even though you're a small company and you're working with a huge company, and as a general rule, I've always believed try and match the size of your companies with each other, so that small company works with small company for a better benefit for both. However, there's times when collaborations throw that out the window, that thinking, because a good collaboration, you can be a tiny company with a tiny idea that can work brilliantly with a very large company. So you bring to the table the best of you both.
Right.
This business, in the case of Mattel, huge distribution in every country in the world, a fantastic marketing machine, and amazing relationships with retailers. From our perspective, a fantastic toy, fantastic product with intellectual property protection, so it's unique. They want to get into this space, this area that we're about to launch into. So let's do a deal where they can have a lot of their territories exclusively, and they can sell our product. Yes, we won't make as big a profit margin as we would if we sold it direct, but equally, we're not going to sell the volumes that they can sell. Huge volumes. So great collab, and that's what we look to do. So you're really leveraging your assets. In our case, our innovation.
Amazing. So there's two more things I want to ask you. Two more kind of topics I want to touch on. One, the last one being your story, which I think everyone's very interested in. But just before we get there, your website talks about, and I know you've shared this with me as well, your vision is to make more environmentally friendly, sustainable toys. And that's a future aim in the business. What steps are you taking right now to put that in reality in the future?
I'm very guilty of not doing much for too many years and then waking up. My two co-founders, Dr. Graham Taylor and Kenny McAndrew, are accomplished scientists before I met them, and then I backed them to go into this business. And for a very long time, they've hated the fact that we make stuff out of plastic, petrochemical plastic, and they've wanted to do something about it. And we had a coming together and a meeting of minds about 3.5 years ago, and we said, right, let's take steps. So we are working with a new compound that can replace petrochemical plastics in toys. There's lots of bioplastics out there. There's lots of claims for different types of plastic that don't do harm or recyclable stuff, and there's loads of stuff. This is a very different thing. This was created by a team of scientists in Europe, backed by many governments, and there was a patent created, and our scientists worked with them on the development for that plastic for use in toys. So it's called Back to Earth, and it does what it says. Once you've disposed of it, wherever it may find itself, it will go back to Earth and leave no harmful nanoplastics. So that's one step we're doing, and then a lot of other with packaging, with more locally manufactured products, which is unusual in toys because most stuff's made in Asia. So lots of different things. We're not going to change overnight, but we will start to make a difference.
Amazing. I mean, the Back to Earth and the work, and obviously I can see it being a huge investment and potentially increasing the unit cost of each toy that you produce. Just something you mentioned there, as a charity ourselves, sustainability is quite high on our agenda, and as is raising environmentally conscious entrepreneurs for the future. When you talked there about the Back to Earth patent, it's almost like patenting the technology that could help the entire industry as a whole. Is it something that you there's plans on sharing with the wider industry for maximum benefit?
Thank you for asking. You could, because I remember doing a pitch originally with this to some investor business and saying, you could invest in this. We've got it exclusively. And they responded with, "That's probably the worst thing we've ever had." You've created something that can do no end of good for the planet, and you want to keep it to yourself. You're absolutely right.
I tried to flower that up a little bit, but
yeah, you did it much more politely than they did. But you're absolutely right. So yes, it will go out to everybody. We're going to open source it. People will be able to get hold of that product. If there's any little bit of selfishness, it's that we'll bring it to the market first, but we will also test it properly to make sure it works, make sure there's a huge amount of work. I mean, it's 3.5 years already down the road of development and work and testing. Look, you have to, with toys, everything you do, you have to test to extreme degrees. There's lots of stuff that does find its way into the market through unscrupulous importers or unscrupulous sellers, and it bypasses all the proper testing. And that's why good brands, I'd always recommend, brands that you trust, brands that are known, because they're under the spotlight, and because of that, they have to test to the nth degree.
Amazing. So we come to the bit which is really interesting. I want to spend a couple minutes on this if we can. Let me tell the audience a little bit of what I know about you. So you are a very successful entrepreneur. You are dyslexic. You have gone through some family trauma and upheaval in your family circumstances. What, to our young audience, especially listening to this, what kind of tips would you say that you've learned along the way in your journey in particular?
When I was at school, I had no idea. Going into sixth form, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. So I didn't have an aspiration to be an entrepreneur or go into business. I just simply enjoyed that at the moment. And then when I left, I was just by chance was lucky enough to, the first door I knocked on, almost asking, "Have you got any jobs? I'll be leaving school shortly." And the lady there asked me, what I enjoyed doing, asked me a bit about me. And out of that, she garnered a bit of information that she felt had a good fit with a role that was coming up. And it was a kind of a sales role, demonstration role within this business. When I arrived from the first day of work, they put me in an office and they left me there for quite a while. Like I'm talking about turning up to the office then after that every day and just being left in the office pretty much on my own. But I very quickly realized that if I didn't add value, then why should they keep me? So I thought I better try different things and I'll have a go at this and I'll do. And I found myself doing telesales. I just asked them, "Have you got a list of customers? Do you ever sell to those customers on the phone?" Just common sense stuff, really. And that's how my career started. But what drove me at that point was the owner of the company one day pulled over to the roadside. I was walking along the pavement. He pulled over and he said, "You work for me, don't you?" And he was in his Bentley, and it was this most beautiful Bentley. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Jump in, I'll give you a lift for the rest of the way to work." Now, I'd just walked about a mile. The closest bus stop was about a mile away. So I got the bus into work and then walked the rest of the way. It was a horrible morning, the thick snow. And when that snow turns to black sludge, it's all over the bottom of my trousers. And when I got into his Bentley, I looked down at his lambswool carpet and I saw this black sludge drip onto it. And the first thing I thought was, he's going to fire me by the end of the day when he sees the mess I've made of his carpet. But the thing was, he was really nice to me. And I got to see him a few times and loved his excitement for new product and product development. And I think that sat with me and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to do product that I can get excited by. So I'm going to have to have a hand in that, like he does, long term. And I want the riches that go with being successful, because I came from a very modest background, and one of the drivers for me was my brother was born handicapped, or actually at the age of 5, he became properly handicapped when he had a stroke, and teachers hadn't realised, and he stayed all day at school. And since that point, he was bullied, and no way could he hold down a job. So my mum and dad, being not having much money, I thought it's incumbent on me to look after my brother for the rest of his life, and probably to look after my parents too as they get older. So I'm going to have to work hard, and that became my driver. That was my hunger to earn money, to make sure that not just I was looked after, but I looked after them. And then if there's anything left and I could, was successful, then maybe one day I could have that Bentley. So that was the initial drivers, and I hadn't realised I was dyslexic. So through school, even at the early stages of work, it wasn't until I had my kids, and they all got tested, some at different times of their life, but usually much later as well. And it found out they were highly dyslexic, but then I found out that I was as well, and that's why I can't do certain things that other people find very easy, but I can do other things. And maybe I've had to work my brain harder on those other areas that really lean towards the creative side, that have helped me massively. And along the way, as an entrepreneur, you get the highs and the lows. It's not like that. It definitely isn't like that. It's a rocky road. The lows are horrible. The highs are like nothing else. And I suppose you hope that when you count everything up at the end of the day, you're more up than you are down in every area. And I suppose that's a glimpse of stuff, and then along that journey all sorts of things have happened.
That's amazing. What a story. And that experience you had in that Bentley, your boss at the time, typical British horrible winter's day. That is something that we had a conversation about at the foundation actually around. Wouldn't it be amazing to start a movement where CEOs like yourself could actively give those experiences to other young people? So we're coming up with some terms, but maybe like a co-CEO, where a young person would literally shadow you and be part, like not an internship, but like a C-level internship.
Interesting, yeah. So I was definitely inspired by that CEO, by his excitement, by his acute awareness of what he felt the consumers would want. Again, before any market research was done, and again because he was always looking around, and he was probably, his filing cabinet inside his brain, different things that came together to come up with some great ideas. And he always led with the ideas, and they became very, very big selling products. So yes, I think bringing young people in, and even if it's not shadowing the CEO, if it's sometimes having glimpses of when that CEO is working in different areas and seeing, what could be, so that kid thinks, is that maybe one day what I want or not? It may not be. It might make them feel that's definitely not what I want to do, and that can be also a good thing, saving time. The other thing is, I remember being asked about from another boss I had early in my career, who similarly was a very successful entrepreneur, made a lot of money. And at the age of 23, 24, so it's my second company I worked for, he called me in the office, and a couple of learnings actually. And one learning was, he said to me, what do you want to do when you get older? And I said, I think I want my own business like you, Mike. And he said, well, a bit of advice. And this guy is now 55, at this time rather, he was 55, and he's very wealthy, very successful businessman, worth a couple £100 million at 55. And he said, I'll give you a bit of advice. I didn't start this company until I was 46. So don't think that you have to start a business from leaving school or from leaving university or very, very early in your career. It can happen. The right idea, the right opportunity can happen at any time. So that was a good piece of advice. And since then, I've always admired people who don't start a business until they're 50, or older, or any age. And the second bit of advice he said to me was, Richard, we sell binoculars, we sell telescopes, we sell cameras. That was the industry we were in. He said, I'd like you to do me a favor. I'd like you to send a catalogue of our latest products to this guy. And I said, Mike, that's our competitor. He said, that's fine. Send it to him so he knows what we're doing, and he'll send us one back. So he's very, very free with relationships, even with his competitors. He was friendly. I suppose that was a case of, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies even closer type of thing. That's not the advice, the best bit of advice. It was what followed was the best bit of advice for me. I said, yeah, Mike, I'll sort that for you. I'll send a catalogue and we'll wait till you come back. Is that everything? I said, yeah. And I went to leave, and he said, and then he called me Mr. North. He said, Mr. North, come back. No, because I'm just going out the door. My God, what have I done? He's called me Mr. North. That doesn't sound good. And I put my tail between my legs. I realised I said something terrible. And he said, I'm a very successful businessman. I'm worth several £100 million. I've been running this business for nearly 10 years. And before that, I worked at the highest level in the FMCG industry, really successful. And I'm listening to this and I'm wondering where it's going. And he said, and to get to this point, I've had to work really hard, but it seems to me that you think you're smarter than I am. And I thought, what's he mean?
What made him say that? Yeah.
What made him say this? And I said, sorry, Mike, I'm lost. He said, well, if somebody asks me to do something, he said, I always write it down. I have to write it down. I always make lists, and I always decide then from that list what I've got to do next. I always prioritize. But you seem to be smarter than me, Mr. North, because you just said, yeah, I'll go and do that. And yet I always find with people that say that 30, 40% of the time they forget that unless you're super, super smart, there's something I don't. Why didn't you write it down? And it was a lesson. that I learned there. Always, if you say you're going to do something, write it down and make sure you check up on yourself. And since then, I've always done lists.
Interesting. And when you say check up on yourself, you mean literally go back to it, not just see if it's completed, but it acts as a bit of a reflection, does it?
Yeah, I've got books. I do to-do list training in my own business, a personal thing.
To-do list training. I've heard it all now.
To-do list training.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Computers that also work with this, but I always use this system. So I have a set system, and if someone asks me to do something, I write it down, make sure it's done, cross it off, and prioritize every single day of my life.
We're gonna have to do another session where we just delve into that. It's fascinating. Richard, you're a man of many talents. Thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it. Sorry to everyone. Thank you for bearing with us while we kind of fix the technical issues, but I'm glad we did, because it was amazing and inspiring, as people are writing in the chat. So thanks.
Very kind. Thank you all for listening. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of those questions, but yeah, but happy to, if you want to send them through to Kumar and you can send them on to me, I'm more than happy to answer them after this.
Brilliant. Just before everyone goes, January 26th is our next one. So I should probably say a very Merry Christmas to all of you and Happy New Year. January 26th, we're going to be doing another one of these with Ria Sejpal, who's the founder and creative director of Lila Bare, which is a sustainable fashion brand formed out of East Africa. So a definite switch up, but nonetheless probably equally as fascinating. And thank you so much, Richard, again.
Thank you so much for everybody, and thank you for your wonderful comments and your questions. Thank you.
All the best for Wow Stuff. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.